You're listening to The People's Pitch, the official podcast of Minneapolis City Soccer Club, brought to you by footballstadiumprints.com. Let's start the show.
And as I talked about just a couple minutes ago, as Joe Watt stands over this one, he appears to be the one taking the penalty here. This is a huge confidence booster if you're Duluth.
Worst case scenario for City right here.
And it stopped! Yes! And it stopped!
Totally redeems himself.
Matt Elder redeeming himself. Oliver with the right foot. The shot is goal!
Oliver!
Justin Oliver will break the scoreless tie. And it is 1-0 Minneapolis City. Is Hutton now on the offense with the left foot.
Goal!
And it is now 2-0 Minneapolis City.
Good finish.
Nick Hutton taking his quick victory lap.
Welcome back, friends. This is the People's Pitch Podcast, the official podcast of your Minneapolis City Soccer Club. I'm your host, John, and with me, as most, is the Nate Morales. Nate, we thought last week was a busy one, but this week's show covers our first ever 5-match week. Are your notes ready?
No, they're not. But the content machine is hungry, and we must feed it. And so tonight we've got recaps of 2 USL 2 games, as well as 2 UPSL Premier games and a Division 1 game. John, it's hard to imagine that there were entire years of us doing this show where we had just one game a week to break down, and we did it thoroughly and excellently. So we'll try to keep it going with when we have 5 to break down a week now. It's crazy.
Yeah, we did our best, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
We'll see how it goes. All right, well, let's get rolling. The Justin Oliver era officially kicked off last week as the goal machine that is RKC drove up 94 to take on the Crows. And the Crows eager to brush off a lot of the kind of push through a lot of the change that has happened in the recent weeks and begin to tackle the heart of the 2024 schedule with a renewed focus. And it came with an updated system, didn't it?
An updated system? Oh, yeah. Okay. I was like, wait a second. In the booth? Do we have an updated system? No,
on the field.
Place, people. I don't even know what day it is. Obviously, new coach, new staff, a few new players in the mix. But yes, definitely a new formation from a system perspective. Now I picked up what you're putting down. So Justin Oliver went away from the 4-3-3 that Carl Craig was running and went into a 3-5-2, which in my opinion kind of plays a little bit into the strengths of the roster makeup a little bit better. From a starter's perspective, you had Daniel Sessler making his first start in the USL 2. You had Ryan Keefe also making his first start. Nick Kent and Jonah Garcia rounding out the 3 in the back. And then defensively, you had James Charles and Juan Moreno. And then in front of them, Joe Highfield with Andrew Shazinski and Bernardo Cibi-Rule flanking Joe. And then up top, you had just a whole lot of human being in Hakeem Morgan and Sadiki Jabate. And then your substitutes were Evan Siefkin, Carson Pena, Curtis Wagner, Dennis Mensa, Stevie Lamar, Lionel Vang, and Morgan Olsen. So a little bit of change. New man coming in, had one day to figure it out, and he did. But early going saw the new look Crows on the front foot, in my opinion, for a change, with a very high line of pressure that forced RKC into a handful of turnovers in their defensive third, or defaulting to that long ball, where the back 3 of Nick Kent, Ryan Keefe, and Jonah Garcia were really just sitting there waiting and willing to gobble up all that direct service. But RKC showed their teeth when, in the 25th minute, a loose ball foul by Juan Moreno in a bad spot set up a Colin McCamey free kick in a dangerous spot about 22 yards out of Sessler's goal. And on the ensuing kick that was well taken, just smashed the crossbar. I believe that if it had been on goal, that Sessler would have been able to save it because he was there. But ultimately, bangs off the bar, finds Michael Riley, who was kept on side on the back post. And I went back and watched it, and it was Bernardo Cibi-Rule who was kind of caught focusing on 2 RKC attackers. And then Michael Riley eventually tapped it in. And then there we go, Nate. We went down a goal.
Yeah. I'd say, though, John, you said it. That goal aside, I thought the club looked great to start the game.
Yeah,
the team looked more organized. Everyone looked super clear on their roles and where they needed to be. I mean, contrasting that to, I'd say, the game against the Bavarians, where I was on the sidelines wondering, like, what are like, and even when it was, I think in the St. Croix game too, I was kind of like, what are some of these guys doing? I don't think they know where they're supposed to be or what they're doing. You and I had kind of given some criticism that it didn't feel like anyone in the midfield wanted to be in the midfield actually. But I thought against RKC, it all came together. And yeah, RKC's quality was on display. I think they were looking for a way in, but the back three of Minneapolis City was able to shift in and out of a back five when necessary to kind of defend those like long balls both up the middle and down the sides. I was impressed. And the good news is that I didn't have a lot of time to feel too bad about that goal.
Yeah, absolutely. Shortly after that, the ball went in the net around the 30-minute mark. Justin Oliver, not seeing what he wanted from Juan Moreno, made a shocking decision to the casual supporter and subbed him off in the first half for defender Curtis Wagner, ultimately moving Jonah Garcia into another new spot for him. So he was a center back for many years. Now he was then a right back in the 3-5-2, and then now a defensive center midfielder. Nate, what are your thoughts on that move? I'm interested to hear your take on it.
I was perplexed. I thought maybe like Juan was sick. Like, wow, that's weird. You don't see a guy taken off at 30 minutes unless something is wrong, unless he's hurt or not feeling well. And then you see Jonah step up to the defensive midfielder role and played that role so well. Like, I just go back to my comments from the last show around he looks like a real leader, and like he's turned it up to another level this year. Like,
yeah,
he's flexible. He's able to play wherever he needs to, and he can do it well. He's got great vision and a display of dribbling and on-the-ball skills that we haven't really gotten to see from him in the center back position all these years. I think it's phenomenal.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think that he's probably been our most steady performer in all of our games thus far. And I think that, where Jonah got caught was, from a central perspective in the most recent years, was having to chase down those big, fast attackers over the top. And teams just figured it out and would pump balls over the top. I mean, you look at the handful that was Nathan Donovan. You look at what the Madrigal brothers were for Peoria in our first year in the UPSL. And like, or any, you name a guy that plays for Des Moines Menace up top, these guys they just figured out that like they can attack Jonah. And it wasn't because Jonah's not a good soccer player. Clearly he is, but it was just an area of weakness for him, was having to track those big, strong attackers down. But now you're seeing where he shines, and it's with his composure on the ball, with his directing of traffic and his dictating of the players around him. I think he's been absolutely great so far. But as far as taking Juan out, like that wasn't, I mean, talk about a ballsy decision by a coach, taking out arguably one of your best on the ball players. But I mean, I went back and looked at it just, to see what I maybe could catch. And I think that from what Justin Oliver wants from his kind of double defensive center midfielders, it's not what Juan's good at. Like, Juan's best role, and we saw it in the Super Cup, and we saw it against the Bavarians, is that box-to-box midfielder, or even deployed out wide, like being able to have space to take players on. And I understand, like, he had a couple different giveaways, had trouble kind of passing players off from a defensive perspective. The foul that led to the goal, and I think like it just. We know Justin Oliver, he doesn't necessarily have a long leash when it comes to things stacking up. And I think that he needed to make a decision right away. And Jonah was able to kind of fill that role.
Yeah. And can I also say, John, how impressed I was with Ryan Keefe? First time I've ever seen him play. I can't remember a time when we've had a center back that is so mobile, so eager and able to take his space and move the ball up the field by himself when the opportunity strikes. And then not to lose the ball once he ends up in the midfield. I mean, I could see so many center backs like who are allowed space, like take those extra 3-4 dribbles and find themselves just pounced on by 2 or 3 midfielders. And just the way he was able to dribble out of trouble and find the pass, like, wow, that gives us a whole new dimension.
Well, and defensively, the guy's relentless.
Yeah.
Like he's like almost like a more mobile Wes Lawrence.
Okay. I like it. I mean, and Wes wasn't, Wes played down the on the right side for us for a couple of years, and it didn't feel like he was hobbling around. So that's quite the compliment.
Yes. So shortly after that move, it was Garcia who found a pocket of space in the middle of the field, kind of received a bouncing ball, and sent a first-time pass over the high line of RKC in the direction of Akeem Morgan, who wasted no time lofting his shot just under the crossbar and then knotted the game at 1-1. And I think at this point, Nate, it was where the Crows had clearly, like you could see it in all their faces. They figured out that quick passing, off the ball movement, like not holding on to things, consistently changing the way they want to attack was exactly how to unlock that back line for RKC. And we talked about it in the show. That's what I saw when they played Rochester. Their high line of pressure caused problems. With our high line of pressure, they weren't able to get out of their half. So when we did get the ball, we had space. And then when we moved it fast enough, which is I think another thing that Juan was maybe not doing, we were able to unlock it. And you could see like, okay, we figured it out. Let's go get the second one. But the total dick punch came 10 minutes later when Michael Riley, already on a goal, collected the ball in a crowd. And then I think he just like emerged out of the crowd with like a yard of space and just lashed a rifle that Sessler, I think, was screened on, had no chance of getting it. And the visitors go up literally seconds before the break.
Yeah. Yeah. What a shot, man. Like it was like you said, it was a rifle shot. I was so jazzed about our first half performance up to this point.
Yeah, getting the goal back, fighting hard, like figuring it out, and then all of a sudden, right to the pills.
Yeah. I mean, even going to the locker room down 2-1 felt pretty good, considering the two goals were, off the crossbar and then in some traffic in front of net, and then that long shot. We'd shown that we could absorb that RKC attack and that we could hit back, so I felt confident that the second half would bring more for us.
Well, it did not. The second turned worse for the Crows when Channing Chaston, who had recently joined the fray, sent an end-line low cross in right in front of the 6-yard box. Comes off the foot of Nick Kent. Ball loops over Sessler, who did his best, but another time where he had no shot at a save. And that one was really the killer, Nate. As City had unpacked, like I said, how to attack RKC, and we showed danger in doing so. But at this point, RKC packed up shop, committed really nobody forward to see out the 3-1 victory. And my final thoughts on this one was we only had one training session underneath the new coaching regime. So these aren't excuses. These are like pure realities. You cannot expect that everything is going to click in one game following a coaching change. You cannot. But what we did see was I love the new style of play, the high press. I love how engaged and hands-on Justin Alvarez on the sideline picked up a yellow card for yelling at a ref, but we know he came out of the womb with a yellow card, so that's new to City fans. But like constantly engaged, constantly trying to move the pieces around, making that substitution call in a first half of a game because he clearly saw something. Really like that, and I just saw some really good stuff. We just need to train it. And I'm encouraged to talk about the next game because I went and I saw the building blocks, and I'm really excited about what the rest of the summer could look like if it continues to progress.
Yeah, it was obviously not ideal to take the L and start the season 0-3, but what I came away thinking was how different this loss felt. It felt different than the loss to St. Croix, which was bleak. It felt different than the loss to Bavarians, which was perplexing. Like, how is this possible? Mm-hmm. I think the shift to the new staff was clearly in full effect, and the buy-in looks absolute from the players, even down to the posts from Justin and Tudor after the game, breaking down the game's successes and admitting the failures, looking forward and looking to build. It's like a fresh approach. Mm-hmm. Like, no shade to any of our former coaching staff friends, but a coaching staff has never presented such a unified front to the fans, via social media, saying this is what we saw, this is what we're working on, let's keep going, which to me is an indicator of how like-minded they are in training. And you could see that with results on the field in the next game. I think providing direction to the team has been so clear. So it's really refreshing to me. And like you hinted at, it paid off after more time on the training ground.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the next one, Nate.
We will. So there was really no time to focus on the past. The new coaching staff slapped two additional training sessions on the calendar after that RKC match to get as much time as possible with the group before heading down I-35 to Rochester. And lucky for the Crows, this was an opportunity to face a team that they had already beaten in the 2024 kickoff of the Minnesota Super Cup. But it's also one that had its own struggles. And this Rochester team has had its own struggles. They hadn't really had much of a win, gotten much in the win column in the standings this season. I think they won their opening game, and then they had lost a couple in a row pretty badly.
Yeah. From a roster perspective, some clear changes. You saw Siefkin replace Sessler. You saw Ryan Keefe kind of cement his spot. Nick Kent has started every game and played every minute. You saw his brother Max return from his red card suspension, and then across the middle, you saw Jonah Garcia starting a full match in the defensive center midfield spot alongside Jamison Charles. Then you had Lionel Vang, Bernardo Rule, and then Morgan Olsen moving from his deep lying midfield position to that wingback spot with a strike partnership of Hakeem Morgan and Eli Goldman. And on the bench, Juan Moreno, Scotty Heinen, Curtis Wagner, Dennis Mensa, CV Lamar, Andrew Shazinski, and Dennis Sessler.
Yeah, so still a little bit of tinkering, I think, it looks like, on the part of Justin and Tudor, probably rewarding some players for working hard in training and for maybe clicking better and getting their system better than others. But for the most part, the biggest surprise is they kept Jonah right there at that defensive midfield role where they liked him. And then, the other surprise is moving Morgan Olsen out wide. I think when they had brought him in as a midfielder as a sub in the past this season, he was looking really good. Added some speed to that midfield. What's that?
He's very, very confident on the ball.
Right.
Specifically in traffic. So,
yep.
So
you were there, John, right? You went down to Rochester?
I did. Took the whole family. Mom and dad were in town for a kindergarten graduation ceremony, which is always a pleasure to attend. So we headed down there for this one. So Nate, this was one-way traffic driven by City almost the whole entire first half. I could count on one hand how many half attempts at most Rochester got.
Really?
Also very perplexed as there were about 50 people there, if you don't count the teams or the workers, and 12 of them were City fans. So
wow,
gone in Rochester are the days of the Med City crowd that had energy, that brought people. It was really interesting because I had not been there for a Rochester FC game. So wondering kind of what's going on there, but I saw it firsthand. Didn't seem like there's a lot of interest in the team, but maybe that does change it if they start to string together some wins. But anyways, the press was high and created no route for Rochester, any which way you slice it. But it was a situation where we could not really flip that domination into chances of substance in volume. The best chance of the first half was early on, and it was a kind of a corner of the box smash by Eli Goldman that went literally inches over the far post. And that one really would have opened the floodgates, specifically that early. I want to say maybe the 15th minute. But it had to be both encouraging and I think frustrating for the coaching staff that the plan that Justin Oliver put in place with the press, it was working to tilt the field in the direction we wanted to, but we were not seeing opportunities increase. And I will say personally, I think some of that was the fact that our guys, for some reason, would not shoot the ball. It was trying to do tight, smash the ball tight into Hakeem's feet on the top of the box when you can let one fly. And I think that's one thing that we have to consider as we move into the next progression this week against Thunder Bay is we have to shoot the ball. And it's okay to take flyers. We don't have to score the perfect goal every time. Look what happened in all three of our games so far. We've got, two of our three games so far, this one aside, where the other team just put something on frame and got rebound goals. We're not doing that on our end. So sure. I think that's on the players. So just once they get that small yard of space, smash the ball towards goal and see what happens.
Yeah. And I want to pause for a second too, John, because we missed this earlier as you were talking about the lineup. We got to talk about the return of Eli Goldman, who somehow has not gotten the interest he deserves from the professional ranks. I think if he can jump back in and contribute at a level similar to last year, we're going to be in good shape moving forward regarding shooting, right?
Yeah, I mean, we did kind of gloss over a little bit. Eli has come back into the fold. He's been training with the team for about 2 weeks now. Had some opportunities with some teams at MLS Next Pro level. Some ideas at the USL 1 and championship level, but I don't think anything really stuck. And personally, I don't think it was the right fit for him. Personally, I think he was looking for something maybe different than what he was getting. But he knows that if he wants to play soccer, specifically in the summer, guess what he has? He has the home he's been at for almost 5 years, where he can come back and he can be part of. So really happy to see Eli in, and I think that there was a little bit of rust, specifically kind of game rust that he had to knock off, and he actually was one of the players that did make way for a substitution in the second half of the game. But it was a good first half shift. He was very dangerous on the ball and created one of our best chances of the day. So, like you said, more to come from Eli on the shooting scale. But the second half saw a lot more of the same. Nate, City continued to high press, created more half chances, nothing of real substance. And Rochester did provide some threatening moments in the second half, but that was, in my opinion, a result of like kind of minor cracks in the foundation for the Crows, getting a little bit tired. I mean, for almost 70 full minutes, they were high pressing and counterattacking. And even when you do make substitutions, that's tough. And they started to get more direct. We started to put bodies forward to try to chase a second goal. And then you start to see the gaps forming. And they did a decent job of trying to pick them out. But from a quality perspective, like, it wasn't there for them to make it into anything. And in the end, Evan made a few cleanup saves and nothing really concerning. But Nick Kent opened up his scoring account in around the 75th minute off of a corner kick that ultimately gave the Crows a much needed 3 points for the week.
Yeah, John, on social media and maybe a little bit of extra chatter, I had seen and heard the narrative that this game was all City. But I thought maybe the club just kind of puffing its 1-0 victory up as something that was more dominant than the scoreline reflected. But from what you're saying, it really was. And you think it's because of the tweaks of the system?
I think so. I think the press is really what's doing it. And before, we might press 2-3 guys, and then we create a gap. They pass out of it, then we're under duress. Now it's like everyone knows, like, if I'm in this spot on the field and we go, I go. And I might be tired, but I go. And we're creating the turnovers. And like I mentioned previously, it's creating chances. And I think there was a couple phases of the game where Justin Oliver wanted to win. It was in possession battle, create turnovers, and win the set piece advantage. We did all three of those and we won the game. I think that the scoreline doesn't indicate how dominant we were, but also it does indicate, like I said, we weren't putting balls on target. So maybe you see City squeak 1, maybe 2 goals more, and that's an easy 3-0 victory.
Wow. Well, John, I think while City is hopefully trending upwards, and, people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, Rochester might be in trouble.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they stole their opener against St. Croix at home, and since then they've given up something like 12 goals in 3 games, and it's just it's looking kind of rough for them at this level. Do you think that has anything to do with absorbing Med City, kind of over, like, stretching their limits, adding the women's side, adding the UPSL side?
I don't think so, man. I
don't
really
think so?
don't. I expected that. I mean, from a Med City perspective, and we noted it when we heard that there was going to be the change. We talked about it in the opener of the Super Cup. That, like, I was expecting to see, like, how well Med City recruited at the MPSL level, and expecting the recruiting advantage to be to continue to trend in an upward direction. It's not that they have bad players, but you used to see some really, really good talent come through Rochester when Med City was in the MPSL, and they gave us fits. We ultimately crushed their dreams a few years in the playoffs or knocked them out of the playoffs, but always competitive games. And I was looking back at like the historical archives, and they handed us our worst loss ever as a club. And I don't see that anymore. I kind of mentioned too, like in the fanfare, there was no one. There was like 3 or 4 people wearing Med City jerseys at the game, and it was like they were like the loudest people there, and it was like, what did happen? And I'd be interested in kind of seeing how the season unpacks, because it is different in Rochester, and I don't necessarily, like you said, glass houses. I don't think it's necessarily better than it was.
Yeah, that's worth remembering. I've forgotten about that. They beat us 5-1 last year at home. It was just like the low point of last season, and I remember leaving that game thinking like, man, if this is where the other expansion teams are how they're gonna enter the league, like we might be in trouble.
Right.
But yeah, what happened to that talent? I don't know. Well, up next, speaking of talent, up next for the USL2 team is a team that consistently does field talent, and that is Thunder Bay Chill. So we're welcoming them to the Nelly on Wednesday night. The Chill have the top spot after one game, a 4-2 win in their only match versus the Bavarians, but they now will be embarking on their North American swing. Last year, they found that quite successful when they came down through Minnesota and into Wisconsin. I will say, John, we were able to pull 1 point from our 2 matches against the Chill. The Chill went on to win the Deep North Division. They ended up bowing out in the national playoffs in what was, according to you, a thrilling 3-2 extra time loss. In the Sweet 16 to the Menace. Last year, though, I'll say the draw against the Chill that I think was around 4th of July weekend was what galvanized this City team to a strong finish that really, I think, saved the season from being a disaster and made it into one of progress. So I look for City to continue to build on the formation and the system that the coaching staff has asked the team to adopt and build confidence in this game against what is traditionally a strong team, but one that we know we can get a result against.
Yep, absolutely. And I really have nothing more to add to this one, Nate. I did not really dive too deep into their first game against the Bavarians. And until this week, I will not know a ton about them until the ball's rolled out. But 7 p.m., Edor Nelson Field, Wednesday, June 5th. Tickets available online at mplscitysc.com. And thus concludes our USL2 portion of the show.
Yes, but the recaps keep coming. We turn the tables to Coach Roy and the boys. The U21 Futures team took on Leon in a match that featured quite a few familiar faces across the ball in our first ever meeting with Leon in the UPSL last week. John, what do we know about Leon?
Well, Leon is a staple of the Mexican leagues, I'll say, in the Twin Cities, and has for a number of years had really great success. And we've seen a handful of youth clubs that have made the jump into having adult programming, but this is one of the few times where there's a team from the Mexican Sunday leagues to do so. Following suit from our former MPSL foes, VSLT. What did it stand for again?
Viejos son los trapos, the old rags.
Since they ceased operations, there wasn't a team that was a makeup of kind of the best players in the Mexican Sunday leagues. But as noted, there are a ton of familiar faces on this squad that possess experience at a higher level. The entire Contreras family's on the roster, and Eric played with us last year. Oscar Herrera played with us last year. Samuel Ruiz Plaza played with us for it seems like a decade. Mido Youssef was on the roster. Javi Alcantara, speaking of VSLT.
Wow.
He was on the roster. Abdi Kadi was on the roster. And then a very familiar face, Jonah Garcia. So maybe, hey, Jonah, less minutes with Leon, more minutes with the USL2 team. But hey, as long as you're performing, I don't care what you do.
Word. I think this is super funny, John, and I was looking into, like, we had talked about this as we were leading up to this game, that you're going to see some familiar faces. You know that Samo is also probably as fit as Jonah. That core of Samo, Midu, Jonah, I think there's a guy, Tomas Pisa, on this that played for Augsburg. They all play as, I think, as the Aguilas in all the little like short-sided leagues and Mexican leagues, and they're just going to approach this game with attitude. So I think this is probably the first game, and I would also say the game where the U21s were going to get that kind of, the only game where the U21s are going to be able to get that kind of attitude out of their opponents.
Maybe Valora.
What's that?
Maybe
Valora. Yep, maybe Valora. But I think that we've got the guys that have been able to play at this level. I mean, this U21 team is not new to this level, so I think they had the tools to handle it. Yeah.
So going for Coach Roy and the boys, in goal, Aaron Chinever. Across the back line, Cesar Daniel, getting some minutes with the UPSL squad. Rigo Ariano, Joe Barica, and Sam Keating across the back line. And then from midfield perspective, Nels Mortensen, Mitch Munzing, and Joe Swellen. And then across the front, Misael Harris, Tomas Mena, and Jordan Ross. And then on the bench, Aiden Lee, Christian Prinz, Chris Franz, Alvaro Arce, James Oberholzer, Griffin Price, Bodine Gosted, Carter Hermanson, and AJ Welge. Or Welge. Welge? Welge?
I don't know.
Well, AJ. We'll just keep it simple. Lyon was shot out of a cannon on this one, Nate. They pressed so high, which I think caught the Crows off guard. And that maybe speaks a little bit to your bringing the attitude. They came to swing first. And it was likely having maybe a little bit of an inside track on the setup of our UPSL Premier Division team and what they might be set up as, and also considering that I've seen many of their players out watching our matches whenever I come to catch one of this team's games. So maybe a little bit of intel, but man, they came out hot. They were able to get on the score sheet first on a little bit of a busted play, but they were pressed so high up, and former Crow Eric Contreras just punished a tap in. A little bit of emphasis on that one to see the visitors go ahead. But the Crows were able to level up when Misael Harris continued his hot streak just before the half, getting on the end of a really nice pass from his college teammate Mitchell Munzing. But then after the break, Contreras was about to double up. And this game was he did double up, and this game was kind of trending all Lyon as they hunted for another goal. But the Crows flipped the switch after going down 2-1, leveling back up, seeing another Augsburg man, Mitch Munzing, bury an equalizer to take the wind out of the sails completely for Lyon, as I think they were out of gas. I think they just they started to foul a lot. They started to do all the little things, and you could tell they were just tired. And as has been the case with this team this summer, Coach Roy goes to a super deep bench to keep players fresh, and there's no level drop to kind of hunt a game's final goal. And after a red card from Lyon manager Luis Contreras that saw them go down to 10 men, it was Harris once again who finds net after a great follow-up on a Lyon turnover. And that was it. And Misael Harris continues his hot streak. And you saw it firsthand. I saw it a little bit in the fall with Augsburg. We've seen it so far now. This is the type of player and the performance that I know the first team is looking at, because there's a new coaching staff, fresh ideas, open book, not leaving any stone unturned. And I think Misael Harris is doing his best, along with Mitch Munzing, to get a look with the first team.
Yeah, I all three of those guys from Augsburg, Munzing, Harris, Mena, I think they lead the team in scoring, 5 each, maybe 4. But still, Harris, that's a lot of goals between 3 guys.
Yeah.
The funny thing is when you think about, as you mentioned, as tends to happen with this U21 squad and has happened historically, we found ourselves, this happened a lot last year, we found ourselves down late and needing to claw back into the game, use the fitness, use the depth of the bench. And it worked out really well for us in the end, both in the playoffs against St. Croix, for instance, going the full 120 plus PKs. And in the run up to those playoffs. This case, it's a little different because Leon was down to 10 men. And I'll say, John, that red card was so stupid.
I didn't see what happened.
the yellow card was for just some jackassery, getting in the way on a restart of a foul. So like there was a foul, City was looking to restart. I think Contreras was just standing over the ball, mouthing off, yellow card, right? Stupid. On the ensuing kick then, as he was forced to give his space, boot the ball downfield to get something going. Contreras just comes sprinting up the field and just trucks a kid. Like, doesn't even go after the ball, just runs right through him. And it's like 2 yellows within a minute. Just took single-handedly, he took his team out of the game. But that is the strength of this U21 squad, is they have the depth and they've got the experience to take advantage of that kind of mistake and to play deep into a game. And we came away with a win.
We did.
Unfortunately, John, due to fixture congestion within the club, neither you or I were able to get out to the U21 versus the 1826 match. So our recaps can be pretty thin, but it's worth mentioning the Crows went up 4-0 in the first half. Another goal coming in the second half before conceding 3 down the stretch to come away with what was still a comfortable win, but closer than they would have liked it to be after going up 5-0. The final on that one being 5-3. Again, mentioning them, goals coming from Mitchell Munzing, and then two goals each for Tomas Mena and Mazail Harris. And there you have it again. It's that trio from Augsburg that are just putting them in the net for the U21s. So after 6 games, we are able to kind of start to look at what the conference is going to look like a bit more for the rest of the 2024 season. And it's not too far off from what we had thought. Right now, we're looking at St. Croix in first place with 6 wins, no draws, and 1 loss. You're welcome. We are in second place, 4 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss. We are a game. We do have a game in hand on St. Croix, and I think you saw St. Croix go out to that 6-0-1 record on the back of an early season starting. Right, they started their season a little earlier than we did, and they were able to play their USL 2 players in those early games to make sure they were locking in those wins. So I expect down the stretch, they're going to fade a little bit, and we're going to be able to stay neck and neck with them and at least find a playoff spot. Worthington is right behind us in third place, Leon in fourth, Valora in fifth. So at this point, except for Valora, we have played every one of the top 5 teams. Top 6 when you count Austin Villa. All that's left is Superior City. Somehow the Blackhawks are 2-1. I thought they were really strong this year so far, but
they came to play against City like everybody does.
Yeah. So we've still got games against FC Minneapolis, still got games against Granite City, and Superior City and Valora, and we've got those are all kind of farther down the table teams. So we got a pretty good shot at the playoffs, and definitely a great shot at first place.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as my thoughts on the table, like you noted, I think it kind of is shaking out the way we thought it would. I think the Blackhawks being in 8th place is a little bit of a head scratcher. Seeing Worthington after watching them play against us, like they're a really, really good squad, and they remind me a ton of what a younger Valora was like 2 seasons ago, where it was like, holy cow, like we got to watch our backs because these guys are coming for us.
Sure.
So it's interesting to see them in the top half of the table. But I think I might get my wish, Nate, if the trend continues. And I think FC Minneapolis might actually we might not have to deal with them anymore.
They might get relegated.
Yeah.
I forgot. That's something to mention, is that if you are in last place, you will be relegated to UPSL Division 1.
And just looking at it too, like, seeing that Granite City at 10th place, second to the bottom, giving up 30 goals in 5 games.
Woof. But they did get a win. They beat Superior City.
Yeah, they did. They did beat Superior City. So anyways, I think the table is very consistent to what I've seen, with maybe one head scratcher in there with Blackhawks. But otherwise, I think this is what we're going to see, and it's going to just be that race. Was it race 26? That's what it used to be.
Yep. Yeah, feels good. Up next for the Crows is a home tilt versus Superior City on Sunday the 9th. That will be at Augsburg. It's a 4 p.m. kickoff. Now, speaking of Division One, John, let's talk about the U19 squad. They did have a game this last weekend against Dakota SC.
Yeah, the 19 season continues to kind of motor on as the young guns work to kind of figure out how to compete at the adult level. And I think they've continued to show promise each week, different types of promise, like figuring one thing out and then figuring the next thing out. And I think Coach Scotty Heinen is doing a really great job with that group. I think he's the right person to be in charge of that group, because very level-headed, like just student of the game, like really, really good, young enough to be close enough in age to some of these players where that gap's not like you don't have like an old codger like trying to tell 16-year-olds what to do. So I think it's a really nice mixture. But once again, due to not being able to be in two places at once, we did not have boots on the ground for this one. But what we do know is the squad was shorthanded due to MTA, MTA having some players being gone for their matches over the weekend. Weekend. But the squad was able to pull out a 2-2 draw on the road, which is always good to get points on the road, with goals coming by way of Cy Friesen and Julian Browers Nelson. So Nate, after 4 games, what does the table look like for Division One?
Well, again, you won't be surprised to know that the top of the table is owned by a team that started their season playing with a roster that was skill-wise probably a little too good for the UPSL Division One. That would be Joy Athletic. They're on top after 5 games with 3 wins, a draw, and a loss. Behind them, Skills FC, 3 wins and a draw with a game in hand. Valora FC 2. Also a game in hand with 2 wins, a draw, and a loss. Minneapolis City shows up on the table in 6th place. As like you said, still trying to figure out how to play at this level, making sure they can adjust to this kind of a league. But we do have a win. We've got 2 draws and 1 loss and a game in hand on the leaders. So comfortably in the middle of the table, still with games coming up against Rochester FC, Superior City FC2, Shakopee, all teams that are below them on the table.
Yeah, I mean, this one, not surprised to see Joy at the top. We talked about what we saw when they came to visit us. Skills FC, you have a player like Jacob Popkin, who at that level against the competition that is in this division, like can single-handedly win a game for you. So that makes sense. Seeing Valora's second team rating higher in the division than their first team is a little interesting. But I think that, even seeing that, like, we sit just below Bateau, and I thought that was a game that we should have won. Yeah. We did get a draw out of that one. But by and large, man, like, I think this team is poised for a really good late season run, specifically once the ECNL season kind of winds down and the players start to come in more full time. I think they're really, really ready, and like we said, they're trending in the right direction. Little wins each time out, and I think that's going to be an exciting finish for this team.
Yeah, I hear you. Up next for the Crows is a home tilt against Shakopee on Saturday the 8th. It's going to be at Augsburg. It's an afternoon kickoff. I believe it's 3 p.m., John. You might be looking at the Pacific time in your notes. So it's a 3 p.m. kickoff this Saturday. That's going to be the return of Zach Susi to Edor Nelson Field, John.
Shaka Pele.
The Shaka Pele is back and playing with his home club of Shakopee as they field this higher level team. He's helping them out. So Shakopee, again, as I mentioned, where are they on the table? I'm looking at the wrong table. Shakopee's down there right below us at 7th place. They've got 1 win, 1 draw, and 2 losses. So also like us trying to figure out where they, how they can compete in this league. Hopefully we'll show them how to compete in this league. And that's going to do it for this week's show. Thank you to our wonderful show sponsor, FootballStadiumPrints.com. Our friends at Football Stadium Prints are always expanding their soccer-focused t-shirt designs, their prints that feature stadiums from around the world, as well as players and more. Don't forget to use the code CROWS10 for 10% off everything you purchase. And remember, all U.S. orders are going to ship right here from the United States, so no international shipping charges for you. As a reminder, Minneapolis City is a 501c3, so you can feel good that your membership doubles as a charitable donation to a club that does good. Memberships for the 2024 season are still available, so go ahead and snag your seat in the stands and get some sweet swag, all for a low, low price that is much, much better than heading to even one game for another team across town. Head to mplscitysc.com and get yours today. You can always find us on Twitter X at The People's Pitch. We are now on Instagram at People's Pitch Podcast. And you can even email us if you have any questions or topics that you want covered. It's been a while since anyone's done that. mcscpodcast@gmail.com. And of course, you can also connect with the club proper on Twitter X at mplscitysc. And that's all for this week. It was a hell of a week. 5 big games, lots of victories.
I'm up, I'm down.
Yeah, I am Nate. That was John. The soccer content just won't stop, man. We're drinking from the fire hose this summer. So we're going to be back next week with more match recaps and more previews and so much soccer. And we will see you at the Nelly Wednesday night.
And you got hooked.
And you got hooked.
Find our trailer.